Uma universidade conectada com o seu tempo, com a ciência e com a formação humana. A Universidade de Caxias do Sul é uma universidade comunitária que tem como missão produzir, sistematizar e socializar o conhecimento com qualidade e relevância para o desenvolvimento sustentável. Conectada com você, sua vida e seus sonhos. Cerca de 100.000 pessoas levam no seu currículo o nome da Universidade de Caxias do Sul. Mas o legado de uma universidade não pode ser só medido pelo número de pessoas que ela formou, mas também pelos conceitos e ideias que ela ajudou a revolucionar, pelas empresas que ajudou a implantar e até mesmo pelos sonhos que ela ajudou a concretizar. A marca da UX ultrapassou as barreiras do tempo e os limites do espaço. Ela está impressa em milhares de histórias e conquistas e segue sua trajetória de sucesso, preparando pessoas com capacidade para transformar o mundo, criar o novo e antecipar o futuro. Universidade de Caxias do Sul.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julia, President of the International Business Student Academic Center at the University of Caxias do Sul. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for being here on the fourth and last night of the Academic Week of International Business. This is the first event we promote in the synchronous online format, and we're really excited with the presence of so many people.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marina, Communication Coordinator of the International Business Student Academic Center. Our work has improved over the years. We're always trying to help and qualify the students through events with current and important topics, such as Semana da Profissão, Partiu Intercâmbio, Semana Acadêmica, technical visits, and trips. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we weren't able to do everything we wanted, but decided to organize our traditional academic week anyways, in the best way we could. Hope you all are enjoying this event. Besides that, we are strengthening our online presence through social media. facilitating our contact with the students and sharing our projects. Our Instagram is at comingux. You can find it on the YouTube chat as well.
We would like to greet tonight's panelists, Eliane Endrighetto and Elizabeth Gang, our course coordinator, Fabio Verrucchi, that will be our mediator tonight, and our special guest, Sarah Borenstein, who is a public affairs officer at the U.S. Consulate General in Porto Alegre. We would also like to greet our professors and thank them for supporting our event, as well as all students and other viewers. For everyone's information, attendance registration will be made by the end of the lecture, at the indicated time. We ask that you follow the informed instructions at the time of the registration, so we can account your presence. We reinforce that only the registrations made after the release will be valid. Participants who are not UX students will receive a certificate of participation upon registration of attendance.
Tonight's lecturer, Elizabeth Gang, is a fellow of the English Language Fellow Program, currently works with the Literacy Department at UX as a visiting professor, focusing on projects related to teacher education and English language learning. She's from Boston, Massachusetts, in the US, and she was also working on campus at UX prior to the pandemic, which cut her program short.
Eliane Endrighetto is a senior sales executive for Latin America, Brazil, Portugal, and Spain at Bright. The company is a collaborative project management platform. She graduated international business at UX and has a postgraduate degree in business administration for FGV. Eliane has lived in Ireland for almost 6 years and recently took a high-performance coaching course at Dublin Business School.
Our mediator is Fabio Verrucchi, the coordinator of International Business course at UX. He has a postdoctoral degree in information technology at the École de Technologie Supérieure, UTS, working with the team Smart Cities, PhD in administration from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, with a sandwich period at the University of British Columbia, and Master in Business Administration from the University of Caxias do Sul. He is currently a professor and researcher at the university.
Last but not least, we have a special guest who will make the opening of our talk today. Sarah Borenstein is the Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate General in Porto Alegre. In this capacity, she leads the United States government's cultural, educational, and press outreach and programs throughout the states of Rio Grande do Sul and Santa Catarina. Prior to coming to Porto Alegre, Sarah served in Brasília, Recife, São Paulo, Timor-Leste, Turquia, and Angola. Before entering the Foreign Service, Sarah was a journalist in Illinois, taught special education in Louisiana, and English as a foreign language in Costa Rica. Sarah holds a bachelor's in communications from Marquette University. She speaks Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Indonesian. We will now give the floor to our special guest, Sarah Borenstein.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening, and thank you so much for welcoming me here tonight. As you said, my name is Sarah Borenstein, and I've been the Public Affairs Officer at the Consulate General in Porto Alegre for a little over a month now. Our office is responsible for outreach and engagement with press, media, and cultural and educational programs and exchanges in Rio Grande do Sul and Santa Catarina. Unfortunately, due to the delicate public health situation we are facing with the COVID-19 pandemic, we could not be together in person tonight in Caxias do Sul in the beautiful landscape of the Serra Gaúcha, but I do hope to visit it soon. Nevertheless, challenging times also provide an opportunity for us to learn and develop new abilities. These days, we have been engaging in more and more virtual and online events. We are able to take advantage of technology to be closer and more connected than ever, even though still far apart physically. Just as technology is bringing us closer together now, English language plays that role in a globalized world. Learning English broadens horizons for studying and improving your own personal set of skills, be it a new business or a new job opportunity. They are all tied to learning. The U.S. mission to Brazil has long made English teaching and learning a significant focus of its efforts and commitments toward the Brazilian community. Not only do we provide opportunities for English teachers to enhance their skills, but we also provide access to those who wish to improve their ability to better communicate in English, whether with a business-oriented mind or as a student eager to learn. Technology has also helped further develop these opportunities with virtual engagements, be it through classes taught remotely by an American scholar or an English language specialist leading a massive online open course, camp, or MOOC camp, to keep students engaged in the virtual learning experience. Some of our educational and professional exchanges have also been experimenting with virtual versions over the past few months. We hope this will prove to be an efficient tool for bringing our countries together while we can't be having in-person interactions just yet. Even though nothing can truly replace the bonding that comes from face-to-face exchanges, we must never lose sight of what is happening right here tonight. The free flow of ideas, the understanding that we are better together than apart. You can check out the opportunities and programs I mentioned on the Embassy's website and keep an eye out for our partnerships with UCS itself. Also, you have a great tool for reaching out on studying opportunities in the United States right there on campus. Our Education USA office, led by the talented professor Sabrina Fadaeli, is a continuous source of information on what the United States has to offer your own educational and career needs. Even though the UCS Education USA office is also working remotely right now, it still plays an important role in advising and helping you navigate all the possibilities the U.S. higher education system has to offer. As an English language fellow working with UCS through a partnership with the Porto Alegre Consulate General and the Regional English Language Office in Brasilia, Elizabeth Liz Ging had a chance to actually be in Caxias do Sul at the beginning of the year, and now is able to share her expertise and points of view with all of you again, though this time through a screen. I'm very thankful that technology is here to help get us through these challenging times. Finally, I want to end by emphasizing that communicating and interacting, be it in person or virtually, is what we humans do best. So cheers to you for taking advantage of this opportunity to do just that tonight. I hope you have a very rich and productive discussion. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you so much for being here today, Sarah. We will now continue our talk with Fabio Verhoek.
Dear Sarah, thank you very much for participating in our event. Your opening words make this evening even more special, as this is the closing lecture of our academic week. We look forward for the next steps in our partnership, and we hope your time in our state to be pleasant and successful. Thank you once again. I would also like to thank Liz and Eliane, who kindly accepted our invitation to debate interculturality, an important topic that affects us all as the world becomes each day more and more integrated. Before we get to start, I would like to congratulate our Student Academic Center for this initiative of organizing the academic week. So far, we have had an average of 120 participants live each night, which I consider to be a very good number. And for each lecture, we achieved more than 500 views already, which makes us certain that of the relevance and quality of the topics we approached throughout the week. That is also the case for tonight's subject. Interculturality plays a major role in international business, since a great part of our job is to deal with people from different countries all around the world. And I risk saying that Brazil is a late mover in this field because our country was closed to the rest of the world for too long. And only recently, we see an intensification of our international trade and integration with other countries. Luckily, this is changing and changing fast. That's why it's so important for us to bring into discussion Liz, who is basically immersed in this melting pot, which is the United States, and Eliane, who is a Brazilian living in a foreign country that has also been attracting a lot of immigrants. So it's not possible to bring this subject without talking about our own experience. And that's how I wish to start our conversation. Liz, would you mind talking about your own experience and how you face every day the difficulties of intercultural communication?
Sure, absolutely. So thanks again for the invitation. Happy to be here. And definitely, I totally agree that, acknowledging our own perspective is really key in intercultural and multicultural environments. So it's a perfect place to start. Um, just to give you a little bit about my background and where I'm coming from when I give you my opinions and we have our conversation. So I'm an English language fellow at the moment, working virtually with UX. Um, I've been an English language teacher for about 11 years. That's encompassed a variety of things over the years for me, not just working as a teacher, but also a program administrator. I've done language evaluation, for example, with exams like the TOEFL examination. I've also done teacher education for language teaching, and some curriculum design as well and materials design. So a little all over the place. But of course, anything related to English language teaching touches on intercultural situations because of the role English has in the current world. But going back a little bit just to where I'm coming from, I'm also interested in language policy, particularly in the US, and I've done some research in that area as well. I'm from Boston, which was already mentioned, but as a cultural identity, I think um, the US has some similarities to Brazil in that there's really strong regional identities in the US in different parts of the country. And I'm from the Northeast, so we have particular sense of the history related to this part of the country, more progressive values in some areas, as well. We have there's stereotypes as well, of course, but I think people are proud of some of those traditions and history, and it's certainly something that has been really interesting to me too. I'm also an interpreter. Recently, I started doing Spanish interpreting, and that's a very different type of job, but I think very relevant to working in intercultural environments as well. Um, and, I was trying to pick what were the most important experiences to mention, because, of course, my job is related to working with people with all kinds of backgrounds in English language learning, particularly in the United States in an immersion setting. But I've had a variety of other experiences as well that I think are just as important, if not as obvious. So I used to live in Egypt. I lived in Cairo, Egypt, for some time working there, and also I was a student at the time. I was studying Arabic. And that was a whole journey for me. And some of the examples that I'm going to mention later come from my time there. Also, before I was a teacher, I worked as an illustrator, as an artifact illustrator, with an archaeological excavation team in Belize, actually, which was an international research project with researchers from the US, Belize, Mexico, and Guatemala. So that was also really interesting. And there's a few other things I could mention, but I feel like I should probably finish with, coming to Caxias earlier this year. That was really a dream come true for me. And it was a beautiful experience for the short time that I was there, until about the end of March. And it was really a dream come true, because I had been to Brazil once before, many years ago, as a student, actually. I was really lucky to participate in an art history program in Brazil in another time in my life. And I was really captivated by the country, by the history, by the language. And I always knew I would come back. That's the joke, isn't it? You never go to Brazil just once. Isn't that what they say? I heard someone say that.
I'm not sure I heard that already, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone invented it, but in any case, I think it's totally true, and I'm really delighted to be doing this online work with the university now, and being in touch with all of you there. So that's a little bit, my background and my orientation to all of this. Um, Fabio, would you like me to pause here, or shall I?
Yeah, we can continue, but I believe it's very nice and good to hear so many positive things about our country. I think I've already mentioned that to you in another conversation we had about this complex we have in Brazil of seeing our culture as something inferior to others, and we are gonna come back to this topic at the end of our conversation, but it's nice that you bring this up now, because we Brazilians need to see that we have a lot of good things to show, not only the bad stuff.
100%.
Yeah, sure. And I would like to hear from you as well, Eliane, as someone who's living in another country. And I think you may be facing these kinds of problems of interculturality as well in a different way. But I believe that the place where you are living in nowadays is a place where you can meet a lot of different people from different cultures. Am I right?
Yeah, you are completely right, Fabio. Yeah, here my experience with different cultures is very work related, because since I moved to Dublin almost 6 years ago, I came here to have different or new experience. Let's say very focused on professional or career experience. And here you find people from many different places, not only different European countries, but people from many different countries as well. So it's the experience we have here is like, it's a little bit different, than I used to have when I was in Brazil. Let's say when I was working with international business, I was working with import and export companies. So it was like, okay, just via email or some, conversations on the phone, it's kind of superficial. But when you move to a different country, then you really have this experience. So my first experience living abroad was in 2004 when I moved to Switzerland. I was there studying as well, taking some subjects of international business in this university. So it was my first experience living with people from, I had flatmates from Finland, from Czech Republic. So it was like, okay, this is different as well. I always had this idea, I always had this feeling, oh my God, this could be amazing. But yeah, it is very interesting, but you also face some, different habits, and then you need to adapt yourself. So, it's a mix of things that you experience when you decide to move abroad. But since I had this experience in 2004, I really realized, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the way I want to live my life. So yeah, some years later, here I am living, in a different country, in Ireland, different culture again. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, you're speaking about differences, and I think this is the biggest challenge we have when we are living abroad or when we are dealing with other cultures, because they are all people, but sometimes we can see that people may think in a different way, and we don't understand the way they are reasoning. And I have my daughter here presenting with me.
Hey,
Okay.
Dada.
Yeah. And what's the biggest challenge of dealing with these differences? Is it this estrangement we have when we see people acting differently? Is this the problem with us, that don't really understand what's going on. What's the difficulty that we have of dealing with these other cultures? I guess we can continue with you, Eliane, since we are already discussing that.
Yeah, I think, that the main thing is that it's not difficult or easy. I think it's different. And when you decide, okay, I want to move abroad, I want to live in a different country, it's key to be open and be ready to face these differences. And, we are different from their perspective as well, as sometimes we see something and say, oh my God, but this is kind of strange. Yeah, but we can do something that for us is very normal or usual. And for other cultures, they could, think the same. So I think it's key to be open and not judge. I know at the beginning it's a little bit difficult. It's easier to say, oh my God, but why do they act like that? But oh no, in Brazil, we never would do that. I know it's, easy, like, okay. But I don't know, maybe at the beginning I was thinking like that, I must confess. But then when you start like noticing and say, yeah, but it's only difference that you have. So of course it depends on your personal experiences. I'm not saying that there is no difficulties at all, but if you are open and you are eager to maybe learn about their culture, why they act like that, why do they have that kind of behavior? These behaviors, they came from a place that I don't know. So, and then it connects to being respectful, and sometimes we assume something and then we are ready to judge. So just, observe that. This is my, my personal experience. This is one of the biggest lessons and that I have learned, because I think it's a process, I try to observe, and then I look around and I see how people behave, especially in my environment that is, work environment. And I work, for instance, my team, the company that I work for now, my manager is from Germany. My VP is Irish, but my colleagues are from France, from Ukraine, from the Netherlands and Pakistan. So I have, colleagues, very close co-workers from many different cultures that, most of them I don't know much about. So I try to observe before, jumping or acting like I was used to do before. So I think this is, about difficulties. I try to rephrase like it's just different, and yeah, try not to judge.
Yeah, and I guess that for Brazilians, it's a little bit harder because we are not used to see different cultures in our country, since we have been closed for so long. Everything that comes from abroad seems a little bit awkward or strange. So it's harder, I guess, to adapt our eye for these kinds of differences. Is that it, Liz? Is that easier for you when you go abroad and see different cultures? Because you mentioned so many countries, and I kind of envy you for knowing about so many things. But having people who are from different cultures at your neighborhood, it makes it easier for you to have this acceptance of what is different.
I think it's actually a really interesting way to ask that question, I think one thing that I would say is that it's one thing growing up in the United States, at least, in my context and my situation, and everyone is different, right? But one thing I think that I did take from that was that it's okay to be different, because, particularly the area where I live, it's a very international city. There's many different communities here. Many different languages are spoken here as well. And, obviously as a child, you don't have the bigger picture. Or even as a teenager, you're still starting to understand that. But I think growing up in that kind of setting, I can say like I do feel fortunate that I experienced that from when I was very young. Um, but yeah, in terms of differences or difficulties that can arise, I mean, I would echo a lot of the things that Eliani said actually. And I would add to, I think expectations can be very challenging. And of course, this is not unique to intercultural interactions. This is also any kind of personal relationship expectations can create communication difficulties. But I think sometimes those unspoken that we have, we may not even acknowledge them to ourselves of when is an appropriate time to call someone for a work reason, or what is the right order that people are going to speak in a meeting, or something like that. It may be very different with different groups of people, particularly when you have, not just yourself as one person who's coming in from outside into a kind of closed setting, but when you have a really mixed group of people with a lot of different backgrounds. I think that can be it can be an opportunity for a lot of learning, and it can also be an opportunity for confusion, which is okay, I think, to acknowledge. Things are not always easy. The best things in life are not always easily accomplished or won, right? And I think having a really deep understanding of another culture,
Yeah.
I think that takes time,
And we
time
also
and
have
effort.
our, yeah, we also have our preconceptions, and sometimes it's hard to get rid of this. I remember my last name is German, and I thought I would go to Germany and I would say, okay, I'm home now, and everything's so familiar to me. And when I was there, it was like everything's really strange. It's really different from what I'm used to. So the
Mm,
last name that I have that has a German ascendancy doesn't mean
mhm,
anything in terms of culture, because my culture is from the country where I live in. And
mhm,
the other way around works as well. I remember when I looked at cultures like Turkey or Asian countries, I'd say, okay, they are really, really different from me. And I remember some of the best friends I had when I lived abroad were from Turkey. And before I went there, I was considering that it was a really different country, and I could see it is not. And I think this is my
mhm.
next question. Is there a culture that's harder to deal with, or are there some characteristics that a culture may have that will make it more difficult to deal with that specific culture?
I mean, I can say something if you'd like
Yeah, sure.
about that. I was thinking about this before, and I think I categorize things two different ways. And I think, again, it comes back to the idea of expectations, because I think it can be a bit obvious, but a culture where there's a really very obvious difference in something very central to the way people relate socially, like gender roles or religion or things like that, um, that's something to understand and to learn how to navigate, but it's not always obvious how to do those things, right? So I think, that can be a challenging situation, but in a way, almost something that you mentioned about when you talked about going to Germany. I think sometimes when you assume that you understand because things seem more similar, that can almost be more of a challenge because you're not paying as close attention, or questioning your own understanding of what you're seeing. Perhaps, or perhaps you are, you know. But I think those are two possible situations that could be more difficult to navigate.
And Eliane, in the workplace, is that different? Because besides the cultural differences that we also have the organization culture, which is another complexity layer that we add to all of this. So in the workplace, do you have any particular different way that you need to adapt when you are talking to your colleagues or to your boss, for example?
Yes, I need to learn a little bit, especially because my manager nowadays, she's from Germany, and usually Germans are very direct to the point, you know. So sometimes we Brazilians, we tend to tell a story about a case, and I work with sales. So then when I need to ask her for some advice at the beginning, I was like, okay, I have this client, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of details. And then she was asking, okay, Eliane, so tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. And I was, okay, so what I need. So at the beginning, it was a little bit difficult for me because it wasn't the way I was used to have like conversations with my manager my previous manager in Brazil, for instance. You know, it was like it was more friendly or informal. And with her, it was very, very formal and straight to the point. But then I learned that it works really well for me. Like now I know I prefer to be like very direct to the point and say and ask what I really want. So yeah, at the beginning was a little bit tough, but then I understand, you know, and it's just something that you need to adapt to yourself, and of course with my colleagues as well, because if we compare the work environment in Brazil and the work environment here, even though I work in a tech company, it's very like cool, people are very nice and friendly, but we still have some differences. So usually like if I work with some Brazilians as well, and usually like when we see each other in the office, when we used to meet in the office, because now it's working, you know, we are working from home, but it was like, oh, maybe good morning, and then a hug and everything. So for them, it was like, oh my God, why they are, you know, hugging? They are just colleagues. They are not close friends. So but you know, my colleagues, they would say, oh, but yeah, it's just different. They would communicate that to me, that for them, this kind of behavior was different. So I think we have like very good communication as well in my work environment nowadays. But of course, there are differences, and I needed to adapt to myself and learn a lot.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that you are used now to this direct approach, and you now like it. Because sometimes when we live abroad, we internalize some of the behaviors we see, and we transform those behaviors into natural behaviors of ourselves. And did you at some point see yourself doing this or having this direct approach to Brazilians, and then seeing them feeling like, okay, you're acting weird or differently?
Yeah, I've heard that from some of my clients, because I work with, you know, Brazil. Brazil is my main market. So on my daily basis, I have been, you know, talking to people from Brazil, from Latin America. And in general, people are more, you know, more friendly, and they like to tell this story about them, about their companies. And yes, sometimes I see myself being like very straight to the point. And sometimes they tell me, they say, yeah, Eliane, I think you forgot how to be Brazilian, you know, or how to negotiate as a Brazilian. I said, why? They said, yeah, because you are tough to negotiate. So I can see this, these differences in my behavior, but it's just a matter of adapt yourself, and I think it works for me and with my clients as well, because I think sometimes we need to be tough. I need to be tough with them.
All right. So Liz, is there any behavior you assimilated from another culture that you really enjoy, or you don't really notice, but you can only see after you did it?
Well, that's a good question. So, I suppose kind of informally, I could say that, the majority of my teaching experience and professional experience is working in Boston, but teaching English for speakers of other languages. So, and primarily just from the demographics of who the students are, it's a lot of students from the Caribbean, particularly the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and other areas as well. But those are the two biggest communities, and students from Puerto Rico as well. And of course, there are stereotypes, but there's also sort of generalities. We could say that people in New England, where I'm from, we're not as physically demonstrative as a lot of cultures in the Caribbean or in Central America, for example, or even Latin America, more broadly speaking. A lot of the time when people greet each other, there's more hugging, there's a bit more like patting people on the shoulder and more physically like open things. And the funny thing is that, in my classroom, it's kind of this ambiguous multicultural space because I'm the minority in the sense I'm the only person from the United States who's there. And a lot of the students, although they're often from different parts of the world or from different countries, a lot of them are from the same region, and they share some of those kind of, body language and greeting customs and things like that. And I've noticed sometimes we go into that mode when I'm physically there. Of course, I'm not physically there right now. But it's funny. I've noticed before, seeing students and, we're in the United States, we're in a school in Boston, but I go to greet them and I don't know whether I should wave or shake their hand or, touch their shoulder. And really it's a bit, it's confusing sometimes, it's an ambiguous situation. But sometimes it feels appropriate, so.
I guess this is a problem every time we were in multicultural environments. The matter of, should I touch someone? Should I hug? Should I shake hands? Should I just wave? Should I bow?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's very confusing and it's hard to deal with. But
Yeah.
you were speaking about dealing with a multicultural class.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that we can find to try to avoid miscommunication problems in this kinds of environments? Or how do you deal with this?
So I think, broadly speaking, is there a way to avoid miscommunications? I don't think so. In life, generally, I think there's always so many variables, right? But can you avoid some of them? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is about paying attention. I know, Eliana, you mentioned that before, being attentive to what's going on around you, observing. Um, I think also too, sometimes I think when we're in a situation, even when there's different cultures, if you have a common language, sometimes people relax their attention more because they feel like, oh yeah, we're communicating and it's fine. But we can say the same thing and have it mean very different things sometimes, right? And the other thing I was going to say is, not about necessarily avoiding a miscommunication, but I would say like it's important not to beat yourself up too much if something doesn't go perfectly, because that's just life, And if you are in that kind of environment all the time, whether because of your living situation or school or work, I think you have to be gentle with yourself, and assume the best intentions of other people as well. It's easy to misunderstand, but always try to have a assumption that they went in with a good intention. Even if that doesn't turn out to be the case, life is not perfect. That's not always what's going on. But I think it's good to assume that, and that will take you a long way, I would say.
Yeah, resilience, right?
Yeah.
It's a very good quality that we need to have or to build when we are dealing with these differences. Eliane, so how do you deal with these miscommunication problems in your work environment?
Yeah, I totally agree with Elizabeth. I think when you notice that you miscommunicated something and you have the chance to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, what I meant was blah 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 blah," so I think you can correct yourself. If you have the chance, it depends on the situation, it depends on the environment you are. But if you said something and you notice, oh my God, yeah, it didn't sound the way I liked, or the way I wanted. So just, say I'm sorry, apologize. I think it's very humble, to say that. And, miscommunication is gonna happen. It's part of, your life. Even when you communicate, when you are speaking Portuguese, you can say something that you didn't mean to. So I think it's fine. And yeah, if you notice that, oh my God, I don't know what to say, just maybe try to laugh, try to smile, and say, oh, what I really wanted to say is that, because I think it happens to me a lot of times, because when I think about something in Portuguese and I want to say that, it depends on the situation. I would translate, and the translation, it's not going to be perfect. So I need to make some adjustments, and I think that's fine.
All right. Yeah, and is there a way we can escape this embarrassing situations, or how do we deal with things when things don't go the way we plan?
Yeah, I would say, just have a positive attitude, and, as I mentioned before, say sorry if you have the chance, and then you start again. And don't be so hard on yourself, like I need to sound perfect, or I can't make mistakes. Because I think if you think like that, it's gonna be much more difficult. And I say this because I used to be like that, very perfectionist. And I used to avoid some situation because I was afraid of making mistakes. So I would avoid maybe speaking to some people, or avoid maybe making new friends or getting to know people, because I would be afraid of, miscommunicating. And then I realized that, okay, I don't have the intention to sound like an English native speaker. I'm Brazilian, and I'm doing my best trying to communicate in English and in Spanish as well, when I speak Spanish as well. So I think, like, it's when you have this chance to live abroad, and to have this experience very close to you, just embrace it, and try to get the best out of the situation. And if you make mistakes, just take it easy, and everything will be fine. If you treat people with respect, I think, you won't have like big problems.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Sometimes we are so concerned about speaking perfectly and with the perfect pronunciation, with the perfect grammar, vocabulary, that we forget to be respectful. And this is the main point. If you are being respectful, it's not a problem when you make some grammar mistake, or you say something wrong, right? And I'd like to hear from you, Liz. Brazilians usually start their conversations in English by saying, I apologize for my English. Should we do that? Or if we want to improve, what should we focus on? Should we focus on more vocabulary, learning grammar a little better, or work on our pronunciation? What matters the most?
Yeah, it's a good consideration, I think. So it's funny in a way that you mentioned the way people often begin to speak by saying this. I wrote in my notes to mention this. You don't need to say that. I think any situation where you're communicating in a foreign language or a second language or a third or whatever it is for you, you know, you've already taken up a lot of responsibility to get to the point where you're able to do that. And that's incredible. So I would say never feel the need to do that. You know, if it makes you feel more comfortable, people are different. I can understand why someone may want to do that. But don't ever feel that you need to. You know, the onus is on the person who is in their first language mode. Like, for example, me right now, I'm, you know, in that mode with English right now myself. You know, to mediate any confusion you might have. It's not on the responsibility of the person who's already communicating in a foreign or additional language. So that's what I would say about that. That's just my personal opinion, of course. You know, but I would say, you know, regarding the particular areas that you mentioned, like pronunciation and grammar and vocabulary, what I would say is that having a good rapport with the people you're with is more important than all of those things, which I understand is kind of a frustrating answer. It's all about the relationships, but I really believe that's true. I think if it makes you feel more confident to focus on those things, different people have more of a focus on different areas when they study a foreign language. Then do that, definitely. You know, I wanted to say about pronunciation too. Please do not worry. That's the most important thing I have to say. Don't worry. Again, with as a teacher, as a language teacher, what I tell my students, and of course this is a controversy in language teaching, but my perspective is the goal of pronunciation teaching is comprehensibility. Can people understand you? Can you express yourself well in a way that communicates who you are and what's important to you? Then you're doing fine. If you are interested in language learning, if you enjoy studying another language, you enjoy studying different accents, I think that's very cool. Some people are interested in that. Go for it. But it's not necessary. You know, it's not necessary, especially when English is used in so many different contexts around the world. And so many of them are international contexts where there's no one particular variety of English that everybody's using, for example. It may be all people who are communicating in English as a lingua franca, for example. So that's what I would say about those things. You know, I think the relationships that you have with people trump everything else. And the respect that you have for each other as people.
Yeah, it's very good to hear you saying that, because I usually tell these things to my students, but when we hear from a native speaker, I think it gets stronger. And
well, I can just be one more voice in the choir here. You
okay,
know?
that's good. It's really good. So, but it's very common that when you are trying to speak another language, you get stuck, right? You want to say something and you're trying to find the right words in your mind, and you're trying to translate sometimes literally, and then everything stops flowing. Is there a way we can manage this situation more easily?
It's a good one. So I know I keep saying that, but it's true every time. So, so I think there's a few things I would say, right? It depends on the situation, obviously, and what you're talking about, and how important is the outcome of whatever this conversation is, and all of those factors, right? I think if it's appropriate, it's fine to ask for a moment. If you need a moment to think about something, I think people generally are quite respectful of that, or at least tolerant of that. You know, maybe, you know, for some reason the person does not understand your perspective of that, but they will probably not say, no, you need to keep going. You know, if you tell someone you need a moment to think, I think that's completely fine. In some situations, I think if it helps you to deflect the conversation to someone else for a moment, that's a strategy that you can use when you really just need a moment to think. I think, again, depending on the situation, it's okay to ask for help. If you have a person that you trust who you feel comfortable asking, I think that is really fine, and that's really relationship building as well. And also, you know, I would say to be creative. Because it's interesting, you know, thinking about some of the research around how people learn foreign languages. One of the factors I think is so fascinating is there's been a lot of research done on how people who tolerate ambiguity well learn foreign languages very well. You know, they're able to deal with those uncertainties, come up with a different way to say the thing you don't know how to say. I think that's really key, especially when you're having, you know, when you're struggling or you have a moment of difficulty.
Yeah, I see people doing that a lot. They get stuck because they are trying to find the specific word they have in mind in their own mother language. And this is, I believe, one of the main reasons why you cannot continue, because you try to find the translation instead of trying to find the other way around, how to build another way to get to the point. And I guess this is also an interesting tip. You don't need to say exactly what you have in mind in your own language. And
Right.
I understand some people usually say, okay, try to think in English, but it's also not that easy, because you already have a proxy of your own language in mind. So it's not just a switch that you turn around and everything is flowing naturally. So we have to be tolerant with ourselves, I guess, when we do that. And sometimes not to be so conscious about our English. And I catch myself sometimes, okay, I just made a mistake. What do I do now? Should I correct myself? Should I say that I said something wrong? And I'm always in between these two questions. And sometimes I correct myself. Sometimes I just let it flow. And there's no specific rule, but if you start to be too conscious about the way you are speaking, you will never say anything. So how do you deal with the situations, Eliane, when you get stuck or when you realize you just made a mistake? Do you stop? Do you correct yourself? Do you keep going?
Yeah, I think it depends, as Liz mentioned, depends on the situation, the people you are surrounded by. But usually, you know, at work, for instance, I feel very comfortable. And as I work with people from different countries, and English is not their native language as well. So I think it's, you know, very common ground. We are, you know, it is a very safe environment, I can say. So if we make mistakes, it's fine. Well, like if I'm presenting something that I need to address a very important message related to my, I don't know, to my numbers, to my results at work, of course, if I make some mistakes, I can just, I'm sorry, I will start again. And then I start again, and then I say what I wanted to say. But yeah, one thing that Liz mentioned, creative. This is something that I learned as well. You know, and we Brazilians, we are very good with body language as well. So you can use this body language if you want to say something that, myself, I speak with my hands a lot. And I think it helps me, to communicate. And if I feel like, okay, I don't know what to say, I want to say, I just, take a moment sometimes, if I have the chance, like have some water and then start again. But it happens, and it's okay, because as you mentioned, Fabio, sometimes we want it to sound, perfectly, like the grammar, the pronunciation and everything. But we are doing our best. And if there is like a mistake, that's okay. Nowadays I deal very well with this situation, but at the beginning it wasn't. As I mentioned, I was very like perfectionist, and I wouldn't tolerate any mistake from my side. But now I thank God. I'm very calm.
And sometimes we used to think that our language was learned naturally, but in fact it takes like 6 years until you can form a phrase correctly, and you keep learning your own language until you go to high school. And so when you learn a new language in 2-3 years, it's something amazing that you can already express yourself, even though making some mistakes, but you are expressing yourself in a different language, and it's really, really amazing that we can do that. But we are already approaching like 1 hour of transmission, and I guess I will bring up the last topic, and then we open space for some questions. And the last topic is dealing with Brazilians, okay? And Liz, I understand that you are dealing with Brazilians a lot these days. And Eliane, you are a Brazilian and you deal with Brazilians every day too. So I guess my first question about us would be, which characteristics do you see in Brazilian culture that work well in multicultural teams?
Do I go first?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. I think that we have a very positive attitude, and I think it's very, very nice, because when we are facing some challenges, we usually try to see the bright side of this challenge, and we are very, very resilient. And I think it's amazing. And you can see like clearly the difference in the work environment when people are struggling and how they deal with this. So this positive energy that we have, I think it makes a huge impact. At least this is from my personal experience. Working with some Brazilians and in this company and my previous company as well. And something that I heard from my colleagues, they say, "Oh, but you Brazilians, you are always smiling, you are so friendly all the time." Yeah, not 100% of the time, but usually we have this friendly approach. And I think it makes a huge positive impact in the team.
How about you, Liz? What do you consider to be some positive traits that Brazilians have to work in a multicultural environment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. First, of course, I just have to acknowledge that I'm speaking about a culture that is not my own. These are just my perceptions.
Okay.
And of course, every generality has many exceptions, right? But for the positive aspects, that's, I think, a beautiful place to start with that. And one thing I would say that I noticed, and from this experience I'm having, but also the place in the U.S. where I live has a large Brazilian community as well. So I've viewed some of these tendencies and things with my students as well, and my coworkers, in some cases, colleagues of mine. here. So one thing I would mention is I've noticed when people are working in a team, they give a lot of encouragement and support to the other team members. Not that we don't do that, but it was very striking to me that people are very like warm and including you in things, and it makes you feel like you're really part of a team, which I don't always feel in every work situation I've ever been in, you know? So I think that is a really dynamic thing when you're working with a multicultural group, having the individuals who encourage everyone to feel included. The other thing I wanted to say was, you know, I've noticed a lot of this is from my students over the years, students from Brazil, but I've noticed there's a lot of curiosity and openness about other cultures. And I would say almost a fascination for some people with you know, being able to travel abroad or study abroad or learning about other cultures. Also enthusiasm for language learning as well. Um, and I think that is that's dynamite, you know, when you have that genuine excitement about those things. I think it really brings a lot to an environment where you're working together with other people who have different backgrounds from you.
That's great. Yeah, and I think there are some traits that I hear a lot about Brazilians, like the ability to improvise. I think we live in a country where improvisation is very important, especially because sometimes we lack this ability of planning. And but we have this good point where we can deal with unpredicted situations, and I think this is something very good to add in a multicultural team. And so let's look the other way around, and I'm not asking for criticisms about our culture because I would be putting you in a very bad position, but what traits do we have or habits that may sound strange to you? I know a few, and if you feel uncomfortable of speaking about this, I will understand.
Oh no, that's fine, Fabio. Yeah, I thought it over, and again, you know, my time of you know, working with people from Brazil is not limited to any one experience recently. It's something that's been part of my life for many years, actually, in the language teaching field here where I live. So yeah, I think one thing I would say, which is it's not unique to Brazil, but I would say the concept of personal space can be very different in different countries. And that can mean different things in different situations, depending on who the people are, and especially between, yeah, in different situations, let's just say, you know, what's appropriate and what's not, and having different concepts of that. And people having a confusion about how well do I know you, and those kind of things can be confusing. And I would say that's something I'm not even so much speaking for myself, but more for students of mine, where I worked in multicultural education settings. And sometimes we would discuss things like body language in class, and those kind of personal space questions. So I think it's something good to be aware of, right? For everybody, regardless of whether you're from a place where people have more of a distance, or you're from somewhere where maybe people are more accustomed to being closer. I think it's good to be aware of what's going on, right? Um, and like negotiate with people what you feel comfortable with, right? It seems a little bit weird to ask someone that, but it's much better, I think, to ask than to not say anything at all. Um, and the other thing I was going to mention, which I think is kind of interesting, is about turn taking in conversation. Um, how people interact during a conversation and who stops speaking when. And I don't know if this is just me feeling this way, but I've noticed sometimes people have a lot of enthusiasm to say something. Um, and in a situation where, you know, me being from wherever I'm from, I would maybe wait, and I would feel like, oh, I need to wait. I can't say it now. They're still going. Someone will speak immediately. And then I think, oh, should I keep going? Or, oh no, they want to speak. I should stop, you know? So I think that that enthusiasm is wonderful. But I think it's good to be aware that not every culture, in not every setting, and I know this is generalization, but and there are people here who react this way as well. But just to, to be aware that maybe sometimes in a conversation someone might want to speak, but they're waiting. They may not feel as free to just interject when someone else is talking. That's just my observation, and I can be a bit reserved as well sometimes when I meet new people. So maybe it was more evident to me. I don't know.
Oh, I think your impressions are really accurate. This idea of personal space, I would say, something that we don't really understand well because it's not something that we have in our culture, I guess. So this idea of invading a personal space it's very peculiar to us. So I think it's something we need to learn when we go to other countries. And this thing with interruption or interrupting each other is something that I also notice a lot. And sometimes what happens is, okay, I have to intervene because this other person won't stop talking. So sometimes what you do is like you stop other person's conversation because otherwise they will keep speaking like eternally. So
Oh,
this is the
wow.
way I see. I don't know. Do you agree with me, Eliane?
Yeah, I agree, and I say this almost on a daily basis. Yeah, but and then I started identifying, noticing. Oh my God, yeah, this is how we behave. But it's in general because there are many different people we know. But yeah, one of the things I would say that usually Brazilians we speak very loud. I think it's part of the enthusiasm when we want to say something and then we want to express something and we are very enthusiastic about it, usually we speak very, very loud between us. And then you can see, if you see a group of people and they're speaking very loud here in Ireland or in Dublin, usually they are from Brazil. So it's one of the characteristics that I notice a lot. But one good thing thing that happened to me a lot is small thing, but brushing my teeth after lunch, for instance, at work. It's something that when I was in the office, I used to do, on a regular basis. I had my toothbrush in my drawer. So after lunch, I was going to the restroom and brushing my teeth. And I would meet some of my colleagues and they would say, "Oh, this is so nice, Eliane, you brush your teeth." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And at the beginning, I didn't realize it was something different. But then it happened once and twice, 3 times, It's just a small thing. But then you think about, okay, I'm just brushing my teeth. And for me, this is completely normal. So can you imagine other things, other differences that we have that we don't have a clue, that for us is so usual and for others could be something like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
This is very funny. When I was in Canada for the first time, I would do that, and people would look at me like strangely because it was a public bathroom, and I started noticing that they would find that really strange, me brushing my teeth. It was in the bathroom of the university, and then what I would do was, okay, I would be tracking everyone who would enter and leave, and when I saw that the bathroom was empty, then I would go there. That's how I did to not be so awkward to them. And another thing that I think was really strange to me, and it may be the other way around, is the time for lunch. Because the way I saw in Canada and also in the US sometimes, is that people don't really take the time, that 1 hour for lunchtime, where they stop what they are doing and they will only have this time for their meal. And I would say that that's really strange. I need this 1 hour to myself. I need this break. And I could not understand why people continue working while they were eating. And I remember once I was going to the office at the university, and someone was eating. She was having lunch, and I said, "Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was your lunchtime." And she said, "Okay, no, let's solve your problem." And I said, "But you were eating," and she was, "That's all right." And to me, I guess it's probably strange to other people when we say, "Okay, now I'm in my lunchtime, so I will not work."
But
No,
just
that's
want to,
great.
yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, I think it's great actually
Do
that
you?
people
I don't.
separate out the time to have that break. I think that's so important, you know.
Yeah.
But I
This is
understand
the.
a lot of people here don't do that. It's true. It's totally
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
Okay. So.
just one example about it, about lunchtime. The company I work is an American company, right? So they used to schedule some meetings during lunchtime as well here in Ireland, because the difference, the difference in time zones, etc. So usually we used to have some meetings during lunch, and people from here, Irish and other countries, they were complaining. They said, no, usually during our lunch, we have a break. So try not to schedule meetings during lunch. So it's just a small difference, but it has an impact, in the work environment.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to the end of our conversation here. It's very exciting, and I really enjoying talking about these things. But I believe it's good to open space for people who are watching to make their questions. So I believe Julia or Mariana are there. Marina, I'm sorry, are there?
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now we will begin answering the public's questions. Firstly, Julia Pagot asked, how can companies help new employees to adapt to their new country, position, team, and language? What strategies can they use?
This is something for me. Yeah, I think especially here in Ireland, companies are really prepared to receive employees from different countries. So they have, the first week, usually, first week, they are very focused on you. They explain everything about the company, the culture, the principles, and usually you have a mentor. So this person will be your buddy, the closest contact you will have during a period of time. So if you have any questions, if you are in doubt about anything, you will have this mentor to help you and to guide you through. But usually they are very, very welcoming. So they know you are coming from a different background. So, my experience is very positive about it. And what I heard from other, not only Brazilians, but other people coming from different cultures to Ireland, everybody says the same. I think it's about Irish culture because they are very friendly. They are concerned about yourself, that you are doing great. Do you have any questions? Do you need any assistance? So I think here they are very prepared because, they will not just say, hey, nice to meet you, this is your desk, and goodbye. No, they will give you all the assistance you need. Even if you have questions about, I don't know, let's say taxation here in Ireland, or I'm looking for a place to live. Do you know if there is, or what's the best place to live in Dublin? People are very open. They try to help you with any questions you have.
Okay, let's go to the second one. Caroline Paviani asked, what tips would you give to those who are going to their first international experience and will meet such diverse people in a whole new place?
So I can say something if you'd like about that one. I mean, of course, it depends on what the experience is, right? But I think probably echoing a lot of the things we mentioned throughout the talk, right, and the discussion tonight. Be open to new experiences, assume good intentions when you communicate with people. Something similar to what Eliane was just mentioning, having people who you're in contact with who can advise you and give you good advice that you can trust, regardless, whatever that is in your situation. It could be a colleague or a friend or someone at your university if it's an academic experience. And I think enjoy yourself. I think enjoy meeting new people and savor the experience. That's what I would say about that.
Awesome. Let's go to the next one. The Student Academic Center has a question. We perceive that students are often scared of classes and lectures in other languages. And we can see that here today, with a number of viewers smaller than the other lectures we had this week. How can we encourage students to participate and have more contact with foreign languages?
May I say something? Yeah, I think this is part of this idea that we were mentioning, we were talking before about being afraid. Oh, I'm afraid that I won't be able to understand what they're saying, or I don't know, maybe, people are afraid of challenges sometimes because it's different. It's difficult. It can be difficult, but you need to expose yourself. Especially if you are taking this graduation, international business, I think, you need to be open to different experiences, especially in different languages. Even though you may not feel 100% comfortable, just go for it. Give it a try, Maybe at the beginning you won't be speaking a lot, you won't be participating a lot, but then maybe the next time you feel more confident, and then the next time more. And I think this is the way we should face everything in life. You should give it a try. If it's something that you are just considering, I'm not, or sometimes people say, I'm not good enough, or my English is not good enough. No, just give yourself a chance to prove the opposite.
Yeah, and Eliane, if I can tag on to what you said, I think that's so important, right? Like that it's okay to feel nervous about something like that, but you have to try. And I can say really quick that I had this experience last semester because I was taking an online class at UX in Portuguese, and it was an art history class, but it was, of course, in Portuguese. And I was quite nervous, to be very honest. Whoever's listening here, I don't know, but I was quite nervous about it. But it was an amazing experience. And I think I learned a lot. And, just don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. I think that's important to say sometimes.
We have here a question from Gustavo that I think connects with what you are saying. He said, Elizabeth, what do you think about Brazilian people trying to speak English and not being that good? Because we think it's so cool when a foreigner tries to speak Portuguese, but we judge Brazilians trying to speak English.
So I mean, Fabio, I think you just said it, right? I think you just said it. I mean, I think look at where how far you've come and acknowledge your own growth and progress. I think it's really easy to be impressed by other people, but it's important to let yourself be impressed by your own progress in your life, right? And language learning is part of that. So, I think taking the time to acknowledge the successes you have and the things you try to do in the languages that you speak or you're learning is really important, as well as having people who support you in that. And it's regardless if they speak the language, just if you have a friend who likes to hear about, oh, I did this presentation and I was so nervous and it went really well, or whatever it is. I think acknowledging those things will make you feel more confident over time. So,
And
yeah.
I guess also, if I may compliment, you have, and this is for the students in the International Business Program who are listening, you have the opportunity to train and practice and gain confidence in the classes. And this is how you should face classes in English. It's not like only a challenge, but it's an opportunity for you to improve yourself, to make your mistakes in a safe environment, and this way gaining confidence to the real world. As I usually said, okay, this is not the real world, so you can make your own mistakes, nobody will judge you, and you can use this opportunity to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Another question, how can we benefit from the technology to prepare institutions for multicultural environments during the pandemic of COVID-19?
Eliane, Liz, do you have something to say?
Well, I think what we are doing today is something that, this is a very good example how you can improve or how you can facilitate this kind of experience. So yeah, I think this is the way it is. This is the new normal. So I think even before pandemic, you have this vast world of opportunities online. So I'm sure, the teachers and the institution itself, they are always thinking about how they can make, the classes more or modern, or how they can do things like that, like this lecture online. So I think it's just, a matter of being creative and thinking out of the box. But sometimes you need like a trigger. Maybe this pandemic could be the trigger to make even thinking about the institution to think about different options. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to say too, I think, and this presentation is sort of an example of this, but creating opportunities for people to connect with each other. I think a lot of especially online learning, a lot of it is focused on the content, like how can we deliver the content, right? And how can we structure our online course, which is very important, for educational institutions. But I think even more important is getting people to feel they're still connected to other people. Like I feel right now with all of you. And I think a lot of really, a lot of companies are doing that with their employees. I think a lot of educational institutions are creating really amazing opportunities for their students to connect to. And it's not easy, but I think it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess there are some things that may help us to improve our abilities, and not only watching to these kinds of streamed, but also to talk to people in other countries. I know a lot of people who play games online and they speak in English, and it's a very good way of developing your ability to speak. And also watching courses in other languages. Nowadays, you have access to courses from a lot of universities, and they are for free. You just have to reserve the time to watch them, and this can also be something that will help you to improve your communication skills. So yeah, we have the world in our hands, and if you imagine like 15 or 20 years ago, it was not that easy for you to have access to all of this. So now you have this in your own hands. It's just a matter of how to use it.
Awesome. Last question. Brazil is a multicultural country, yet companies, schools, and universities are not all prepared to receive people of different ethnicities, ages, and genders. How can the government and the people help the country become more tolerant?
So I just want to start by acknowledging this is a huge question. And I am not really prepared to answer it, but I'll say something. I think the kinds of I don't know, attitudes and ethics that we want to see in our larger society start with individuals. It's not all about the individual. I wouldn't say that. You know, things need to happen on a bigger level as well. But I think one way I can answer this question is by modeling those things in your own behavior, in the interactions you have with people, and especially, you know, if you're in a position in an institution where you have an impact on those kind of things, whether it's a business, an NGO, a nonprofit, a educational site, you know, to take responsibility for the ability that you have to make change in your own environments. And that's not the perfect solution or answer here, but I think it is something that, you know, all of us can consider in our own way, how we model that in our own lives.
And I think speaking specifically about Brazilians, there's something we need to work on ourselves, because we find it so nice when we see immigrants from North America or Europe, and we find that cool. But when it comes to immigrants from underdeveloped countries, our attitudes towards them are not the same. And we also need to be accepting and tolerant of those immigrants as well, because they are coming to our country looking for a better perspective in life, the same way some Brazilians do when they go to Europe or North America. So I think there are some things we need to work as a society in our country that may not be something that comes from the government, but from ourselves, our communities, and being tolerant is a way of doing that.
Yeah, just would like to add, I do agree with Fabio and Liz. I think everybody starts with us. So it's being tolerant. It's about my concepts, my principles, what I believe is true or not. So yeah, there is a lot of work we need to do as human beings, you know, in this world. But we can't say, oh, this is government fault, or this is the institution responsibility. No, I think it's all of us. We all can contribute some way to make this happen, and yeah, to have a positive impact on this.
Okay, so I just need to mention, Eliane, that we have a lot of people congratulating you for keeping up with us for such a long time, and they are concerned about you and your sleeping time, as I see.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thanks.
And also, Liz, during your talk, a lot of people were agreeing with you, and we will have our conversation online on the link that I sent to you. So if you want to check what people commented, you have access to it. But people participated a lot, and it was really nice. And the conversation was really nice too. I just want to leave this final minutes for you to make your final statements if you wish to say something.
Sure, I can go ahead. Of course, I just want to say thank you again for the invitation. I enjoyed myself immensely. I wish I were there with all of you in person to have this discussion together, but this is the next best thing. And yeah, I wanted to just emphasize that, I think the interest that people have in working in intercultural or multicultural settings is so important. And like, I commend anyone who wanted to watch this presentation and wants to, develop their own ideas and feelings about this. I think it's so important for the world that we're living in. At any point, of course, but I think especially right now, it's very important. And yeah, other than that, you don't never need to apologize about your English. I will restate that because you don't need to do that. And definitely, continue your interest with foreign language learning. I think that's another big key for us all in the world right now. And good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also like to thank you guys for the opportunity. Thanks for having me tonight. It was really, really nice to have this chat. I think it's a very important topic as well. So it was a great chance, even for me, to share a little bit of my experience and learn with you too. It was amazing. Thanks again.
Okay, Eliane, Liz, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I cannot express in words how much we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to hear from you and your experiences. I'm pretty sure this was a very good closing event for our academic week. And I would like again to congratulate our academic center who promoted this week, and they were really there were really good lectures. And Julia, Marina, congratulations to you for your courage to come here and to speak English. And I have to say that you did a terrific job. Congratulations, Marina, Julia, you deserve it. Okay, thank you everybody who's watching as well. Marina and Julia have some instructions to you, but yeah. I already finished my talking here, and I thank you all for watching us.
Thank you, Fabio. So we would like to thank everyone for being here with us today, for participating in our event tonight and this whole week, and for being such a great audience to our panelists. Attendance registration can now begin. You just have to send your full name and enrollment number or UX number in our live chat on YouTube. If you're not an UX student and would like an attendance certificate, please send your name and email address on the live chat as well. Once again, thank you, Eliane and Liz, for being here with us today and sharing your knowledge and experiences with diversity, multicultural environments. It was an amazing talk. I think everyone learned a lot from what you told us today. Thank you, Fabio, for your support, and thank you to everyone who watched and participated in this amazing event tonight and the whole academic week. We're really proud of the average viewing number we achieved, with about 85 viewers to 105 viewers each night. And I would also like to give a special thanks to our academic secretariat. As a team, we organized our event after a lot of ups and downs, and it turned out really good. So thank you guys for helping in this event. And thank you everyone for being here today. I think that's
Let me
it.
say their names, Gustavo and Juliano. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Have a good night.